If you love ombre manis and you love flake dip powders, did you know you can combine an ombre and a flake mani to do an ombre flake dip powder mani? And it is so much easier than you think. What's up, nail crew? It's Nicole, your fellow nail obsessed DIYer. Today is all about flakes and how you apply them and how you can ombre them for a gorgeous look. I'm going to give you a ton of tips and tricks as well. First, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard. I am never going to be able to figure out how to do this. But after a couple tries, I found some tips and tricks that I want to share with everyone. So make sure you stay tuned. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to dip our base nail color. So I went with this like really neutral color because I wanted it to pop against the foils that I was using. The neutral is called Irreplaceable. I am such a huge fan of neutrals. I probably don't wear them as much as I would like to. Well, I know I definitely do not wear them as much as I would like to. I know I always talk about how I love pink and I love black. So like this mani combined three of my favorite colors: neutrals, black, and then the foils that are in this like shift pink, purple. I don't know, they shift a ton of different colors. I wanted to do an ombre at first on two nails, but by the time I got to my right hand, I was really tired. So I ended up only doing the ombre on the middle nail. And since foils lay really flat, I knew that I could do two full dips. So if you've seen any of my other videos where I do an ombre with glitters, I typically do not do two full dips. So say I'm going to do the ombre at the bottom of the nail, then my second dip won't cover the bottom of the nail. I leave that space for the glitter. Or if I'm going to do an ombre at the top of the nail, I typically leave that open on the second dip and just do like part of the nail. And this way it has room for the glitter, especially when your nails are really short. I like to leave extra room when I'm doing a glitter ombre. But since we're doing a foil ombre and foils lay so flat, especially these ones that I'm using because they're small foils, I knew it was going to be okay to do two full dips of the shimmery neutral. Definitely want to try doing some more neutral manis coming up. I absolutely love them, and they definitely have not gotten enough attention, and I have a ridiculous amount of neutrals in my collection that need to be used. So since my nails are really short, I did two full dips all the way to the back of my cuticle, and I made sure that I really brushed off well in between each layer. Whether my nails are long or short, I like to use a stiff nail brush and brush off in between each layer because this way my nails aren't getting any thicker than they need to be by leaving excess powder on them. And then the nails that I was going to do just the neutral on, I made sure that I did clear dip powder over and activated them before I went and busted out the foils, because let me tell you, foils are so messy. Okay, you're basically like snorting, inhaling foils because they just fly everywhere, especially if you're going to be tapping them, which I did in this mani. I tapped some onto my nail, and then when you brush them off, it's like foils are exploding everywhere. So I can't even imagine like being a dip owner and being a dip company owner and having to make foils and them just being everywhere, because even just using them for like a couple nails, they are all over the place. So you want to make sure that when you're going to apply your foils, you have some kind of like piece of tape on one of the fingers of your other hand. You can use masking tape, washi tape, painter's tape. Any of those work really well to be able to press the foils down. And let's talk about some tricks on how to use foil dip powders. The first trick is using a piece of tape on your opposite hand to press the foils down as soon as you've applied it. Once you trace around your cuticles to make sure that none are stuck to your cuticles, then you can go and press the foils down so that they start to lay nicely right away. And foils tend to like melt into one another, so pressing them down nicely right off the start helps them to like maintain their color. I've noticed you definitely want to, when you're using foils, place the foils into some kind of like other container, whether it's a dip cup like the ones that I'm using here from SJ3 Designs, or you can also use cupcake liners if you don't have dip cups. I will say the cupcake liners, I make a massive mess over and they're really easy to knock over, so just make sure you're really careful. The reason I like to put them into something else is because then I can take the little container that they're in, whether it's these dip cups or the cupcake liners, and shake them up a little bit. So shaking up the glitters, flakes, and foils, especially when you're using any of those three, that allows the bigger pieces to come up to the top. So if you're using flakes like I am, when I do this little shake and like keep shaking it, you can see in the video that the flakes are coming up more towards the top, so that when you lay your nail flat onto the top of the powder, the top of your nail is going to get all those flakes that you want to pick up, and then you're going to get so much more of a better flake effect. And I do the same thing with glitters and foils too. I'm sorry, I think I've been saying, wait, this was when I finally realized that I was saying foils instead of flakes for this whole first part of the video. I actually went through and changed up the beginning, but instead of redoing the entire thing, I'm just fixing the beginning. And you got a bunch of areas that said that I put text on the screen, so you knew I meant flakes. Okay, so when you apply your flakes to do the ombre, you're going to apply dip base over only about 3/4 of your nail. Then you're going to lay just the tip of your nail into the foil, oh my gosh, into the flakes. This way you get that really good coverage just at the tip, so that the rest of your nail doesn't look like it has a bajillion flakes on, since the flakes really fly everywhere. Then you want to take an ombre brush and gently tap down your nail. And since you didn't put the dip base all the way to the end of your nail, you're not going to get the flakes coming all the way down. Then I like to go in and just place a couple extra little flakes towards like the middle of my nail, where it would look more natural that they'd be cascading down. That's where I like to go and place them, so that it gives it that ombre effect. And that's how easy it is to do flakes for an ombre. It takes a little bit of practice with doing the actual like tapping of the ombre brush to make sure that you're putting the flakes in the right spot. But other than that, it's pretty easy. I honestly think that it's easier than doing glitter for a mani, doing a glitter ombre, just because the flakes are pretty forgiving and they kind of just fall everywhere, as compared to glitter like can really end up like chunked up in one area. So anytime I'm using flakes, and actually foils too, I just said foils, anytime I'm using them, I like to make sure that I wipe my brush off on a lint-free paper towel or a lint-free wipe, because you don't want to get flakes or foils or glitters stuck on your brush, because then those could transfer to the next mani. So you want to be really careful when you're using that, or when you're using dark colors too. You can wipe the brush off on a lint-free wipe or paper towel. And I like to really try to float the dip base over the flakes. So this goes to when you're doing flakes or foils. I make sure that I float the dip base over. You don't want to pull the flakes or foils if you're using foils, but we're using flakes, as we've determined like 8,000 times that I said wrong. If you're using flakes, you don't want to pull them out of the spots they're in, because like you have them placed all nice. So I make sure that I really float the dip base brush over before I apply my clear dip powder. And even on my second layer of the flakes, that I'm really, really careful to float the dip base over so I don't mess my flakes up. And you can even see, as I'm going to be starting to like activate, you can see how gorgeous the flakes are popping through without even top coating. These flakes would look super cool matte, but I just really wanted them shiny to show off the gorgeous ombre that I had worked to do, and like finally figured out how to do a good flake ombre. If you're ombreing with a really dark flake color like I am, I wanted to make sure that when I added the activator to the ombre nail, that I first kind of activated at the bottom so that the dark flakes wouldn't bleed down into my light neutral color that was the base. Even though I had topped with clear, I'm just like extra paranoid about using like a dark color and a light color for an ombre. So I just made sure that I used the activator at the bottom first and then did the top. Once my nails hardened, then I could go through and just very gently buff the top of my nails and fix up any of my shaping that got a bit wonky. Especially I've noticed when my nails are short, they kind of tend to lose that like slightly tapered square and end up a little bit bulkier on the sides than I would like. So I just have to go around and fix up the shaping and just kind of crisp it up. I know, because I love saying crisp up my shaping or crisp up my cuticles. Now we're going to talk about top coating, and I absolutely love top coating with dip liquids. I know some people really struggle, so I wanted to really go into this. I like to make sure that I push back all my cuticles before I start doing my top coating. And whatever top coating you use, whatever dip liquids, make sure you follow their instructions because they're all going to be a little bit different with the timing of the top coating. So for these ones, I'm using the OG dip powder dip liquids. You activate 5 nails and you do pretty heavy activator. So that means take the activator, apply it to a nail, dip it back in the brush, and then apply to that same nail again. So you do thumb through pinky. Once you get to your pinky, you're going to want to count to 10. Then once you get to 10, you go back to your thumb and do the first layer of top coat in 2 to 3 quick, even, and thin strokes. You really want to make sure that you float your top coat brush. I actually float my top coat brush regardless of the brand that I'm using. I know some brands are very easy to contaminate, which means that they get hardened, the brush does. So floating your top coat, and I float on both layers, it just helps that my top coat pretty much never hardens. Like, I have to be honest, it's been a really long time, even using a bunch of different dip top coats, it's been a really long time since I've hardened a top coat brush, only because I started realizing that floating is a lot easier. So once you get through that first layer of dip top coating and you get to your pinky, you can go back to your thumb and do your second layer. You can do it a little bit slower, but I still float it and do nice, thin, even strokes. Now, if you're struggling with your dip powder and you're like, Nicole, I am so not ready to start ombres, I just need help with basic manis, make sure you check out the first pinned comment. That's going to be the link to my Dip Nails 101 guide that has everything you need to dip from start to finish. Or you can check out the next video where I teach you how to get beautiful cuticle lines. Thanks so much for joining me today, nail crew.